The Celtics season is over and in pretty devastating fashion. And now we look ahead to the offseason, which is littered with questions about the roster, how to navigate the Jaylen Brown contract situation, CBA constraints, and some issues with confidence in our coaching. Let's get into it next on First to the Floor.
Who's going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
Brown drives, way upon the glass.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice his body.
Garnett knocked away.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, as he often is, it's Mr. Wayne Spooney. Spooney, how are you doing after such a disappointing end to the Celtics season there?
I don't even know anymore, man. We're just particles bouncing around in space. Like nothing means anything. It doesn't matter.
It's a simulation.
Yeah, pretty good, I guess.
Jake, also with us, Hot Take Jake Eisenberg. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Honestly, I've mostly moved on. I'm guessing those feelings will come roaring back as soon as I watch the first minute of game one of the finals and want to die again. But as of now, I'm able to have got some perspective. I feel good. I'm ready to fix the Celtics.
All right, well, let's get into it. I mean, yeah, the finals, it's like a party that we're not invited to, right? Like maybe it's in an atrium style building that we can walk past and see through the glass, everyone clinking glasses and having a great time, and we're just not allowed in. Sorry, not on the list. Look, the whole angle for this podcast is heading into the off season and just being funneled into it in the way that we have. There's so many questions about what's next. So we've sort of listed down all of the pertinent questions that we want addressed going through the off season, and we're going to do our best to not necessarily answer them, but address them in the best way possible. So I think the best place to start is Brad Stevens' press conference, which was held today, overnight, Aussie time, where he outright committed to Joe Mazzulla as the coach. I think the first question otherwise would have been, will we commit to Joe Mazzulla as the coach? We know that to be the case. Spooney, I guess as an extension to what we now know about Joe and Brad's commitment to him, like, are you okay with that choice? Are you like, what assistant coaches do you think that Joe will bring in? And should we be concerned that at the first available opportunity, all of his existing or pre-existing assistants just fled the scene immediately?
So as far what I will say about Joe is he's not perfect. I've said he's probably an average coach. I think he showed a lot of growth through the playoffs. It was painful at times, but he did show he's not Bud. He's willing to change. He's willing to try new things. He's willing to switch up the starting lineup, which he was loath to do during the entire regular season. It's a little concerning that it seems like some of those changes were his team asking for it, but maybe that's a good thing. Like, he preaches open, honest communication, and it seems like that's not just talk. Like, he really is open to listening to the team and what they have to say and his assistants. So I think it's okay to give it one more year with Joe, especially if you're going to bring in an actual staff for him. So am I concerned what that says about Joe, that all those assistants left? No, because I think that is partly Brad Stevens' fault, because you promoted like the low man on the totem pole to the head coach position. Like, if I was Damon Stoudemire, I would have felt slighted too, man. I would have been like, are you kidding me? I was Udoka's right-hand man after Will Hardy. Yeah. And Hardy's gone. Like, why is it not me? You don't believe in me? You're promoting the paddle guy with Romeo Langford. So, but I don't, there's some quotes, and I think that Jared Weiss piece where it seemed like the assistant coaches did learn to somewhat respect him, which I think, considering the circumstances, like, that can really fester and be a complete disaster. It doesn't seem like it ever got to that point. So that's good. But I think, I'm not worried about that, because I think that was inevitable. All those guys were Udoka's guys. They're all Seattle guys or Washington guys or Oregon guys, wherever Udoka's from, Portland guys. And I think Silas will definitely be coming in. And then I saw on Twitter that Phil Pressey's been in the practice facility,
Oh,
guys. Yeah. So those two definitely. And I hope Vogel. I think Vogel would be the perfect assistant for what Joe lacks. Veteran voice, defensive guy. So I'm hoping he's willing to take an assistant job.
It's funny. It's like all we heard all playoffs and all season was the Celtics have like the worst bench. Brad Stevens screwed everything up. How did he not add a veteran staff? And then it's like, oh no, we're losing all of our assistants. like they're poaching all of the high level Boston assistants. It's like, which one is it? One, the bench is terrible, or two, it's like this is another disaster where the Celtics are losing their bench. One thing that Brad was very clear on, it felt like to me, was that, and I know we're going to talk about the adversity, but like Brad was like, this situation was a mess. Like I was given an entire summer to prepare everything, choose my staff, talk to my staff, create the philosophies, principles, day-to-day habits. Literally 3 days was given to Joe. And then on top of that, as far as like Joe getting better, like Brad said, you could measure Joe's years as a head coach in dog years. Just like the amount of experience that he's got in this first year, thrust into the first, year as a head coach. Round 1, Quinn Snyder, one of the best coaches in the NBA. Round 2, Joel Embiid and James Harden. I was going to say Doc Rivers, but like maybe not one of the best. Well,
nice omission.
Team coach of all time, according to like the thing that he got voted in for. But like James Harden and Joel Embiid, the MVP, like one of the best teams in the league. And then he was handed the challenge of trying to slay the dragon.
The handsome dragon.
The Elite Four, the champion. He was not quite able to get past the last boss. But like those are some serious challenges, and like he's going to have learned, like, he made these changes a little too late by putting Rob in the starting lineup for the Sixers series. Next year where he's like, if I'm thinking that we might want to get to this, maybe he does it a game earlier. So I think that was like a big takeaway on Joe and Brad, was that it was a really tough situation, which we all agree with, and that we really expect him to grow from this, especially when you add in the context of adding these assistants. And I love that he's open to like bring in these high level assistants and be willing to listen to like what they have to bring to the table.
Yeah, for sure. The tough thing about this time of year is that we sort of remember everyone at their worst. Like I think Malcolm Brogdon is on the tip of everyone's tongue as far as like pieces to move and trade this offseason. The guy just led the league in 3-point shooting and won 6th Man of the Year at his first year with the team. And yet like I think a lot of us feel like we can't wait to get rid of him, mostly because like we're just leaning too far in one direction positionally, and we need to sort of have a better like talent and positional diversity on the team. And then with Joe, obviously going up against Eric Spoelstra in that playoff series, the conference finals, didn't look good for him. But if you remember Missoula ball at its peak, like there was so much off-ball cutting, off-ball movement. Like the offense was like a humming, beautiful machine at its peak. And that is Joe Missoula and his team coaching the team. We don't know what happened midway through the season, as that they sort of went away from that beautiful game, that beautiful style of offense with all the off-ball cuts and getting to the rim and new ways of getting Tatum the ball, and we kind of went back into a more standardized offensive scheme. But at his best, like Missoula has proven himself to be a decent coach. Like everything you guys already said, you add in all those factors of him having a full offseason to develop, having a coaching bench that he's actually assembled himself. I think we at least need to give him another chance. And then you add in like the continuity factor. Like, can we please just have like a coach have a repeated year with this team? I think is huge as well. So I'm definitely on board. As tough as that was to grapple with me a week ago, I'm definitely on board with running it back with Joe Mazzulla and at least seeing what it looks like. You can always sack him halfway through the year, like so many teams do. I would hate to see that happen, but I think that's the road we've got to go down.
Yeah, promote Vogel.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was listening to Mike Malone interview on Part of My Take, and one of the things he talked about was like continuity with these guys. And I've always been a continuity guy. It's why I think the Celtics are so good. Like this core has been together for a while, and it's important to remember that they are so good. They were this close, and Brad talked about that too. Like a couple things go the other way throughout the playoffs. Maybe they're not in the position that they are in Game 7, or they just win Game 7 and they're getting ready to play tomorrow. So continuity is really important. Mike Malone's been the coach of the Nuggets for like 6+ years, I think. Obviously, Spoelstra's been there forever. Like all the best teams, for the most part, players and coaches, continuity is a key.
Now, moving on to the next question for the offseason, and it's based on a clip that we've got that we're going to run here from Al Horford's post-game interview after Game 7.
Seemed like a lot of players didn't think you guys found the consistency you needed to this year. How do you evaluate the consistency the team played with this year, and why do you think you might not have been as consistent as?
I'm not going to get caught up in consistency questions and things like that. We have a good group. We had a lot going on this year. And our guys should hold their heads high because we had a lot of adversity. And in that locker room, we dealt with a lot of things. And our group was very professional all year, worked really hard. And it's disappointing that we didn't get our results. We failed. We failed because we wanted to win a championship. That was our goal. But despite that, I'm very proud of that group because there was never any excuse. We went through ups and downs, but we stuck with it. So right now, I feel like we want solutions, and sometimes you kind of have to step back and look at the work, and that's just not going to happen right now in the heat of the moment.
So the question coming off watching that is like, what were the points of adversity for this team? Some of them we know of, obviously the Udoka situation, the implementing of the new coach 5 days before the season started. Obviously, I'm just speculating here, but from what Al said and the way that he answered the question, it sounds like there were a lot of additional points of adversity that were occurring within the locker room. So the big question is like, what were those points of adversity? And to answer them would be highly speculative, but that's also fun to speculate on these things that are absolutely none of our business. So I thought we could try and go around the room and like rank, for a lack of a better term, and maybe it's cathartic for us to do so, rank the points of adversity, the subjects of adversity that we know of for the team this year. So I'll start with the easy one. I've already said the firing of Ime Udoka. Spoonie, what do you think was the next most stressful thing going on in the locker room this year?
The KD JB trade rumors. That was like right in the heart of the season. I think the team was not playing super well around then too. And they didn't like Brad. I think this is just Brad's style, but he didn't come out and wasn't like Jaylen Brown is absolutely not, available for a trade. Like he didn't do that. And it was like a media storm about JB KD. And like, that's kind of the heart of the season when you're starting to wind up for the playoff run, man. Like I think is in February is the trade deadline. So I can't see how that didn't affect the locker room at some point.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I love Jaylen, but like he's always like these words were misconstrued, and the media always does this. And it's like, you did the interviews.
Yeah.
You have your feelings on the media. If you think that, then why bother? So yeah, clearly that was a thing. That we had the Tatum, Brad, Jaylen 3-way call, the famous
three-way.
The famous three-way.
I'd pay to see that or hear that.
Maybe the underrated adversity that they didn't face was the PP insertion in the three-way.
In the three-way.
In the three-way is that, or the lack thereof the PP insertion. That was what they were really missing in the three-way call. I don't think this is a real piece of adversity, but like Pritchard was clearly unhappy the whole year.
Yeah.
That matters, man. That stuff matters.
That's probably a little lower on the totem pole, but like it comes out again today that Peyton Pritchard wants a trade. It's like, we got it, dude. We know.
Yep. I would add the Grant situation as well. Obviously, that's more of like a personal, isolated point of adversity for Grant, but that clearly sort of permeates through the team, through the locker room, through maybe Joe's indecisiveness as to when or if to play him at all. He was like in and out of the rotation all year, particularly in the playoffs, where we kind of needed like a player of his capabilities quite a lot, and he just couldn't find a consistent place in the rotation there. You would imagine, especially with how vocal Grant is, and again, we're speculating here, that had to have an effect on the locker room as well. What else do you think, Spoonie? Anything else that you want to speculate or guess on?
It just seemed like all like the constant, like, we didn't bring our A game. I don't know. Like, it just feels like they kind of wanted to coast, and like the fan base and the media expected a lot out of this team this year. And it seems like they always had to like defend Missoula too, and like all these press conferences. So I just feel like that kind of goes into the Ime firing, but just like all season long, it's just kind of like the roots of the Ime firing spread out and permeated into like their day-to-day lives, where it's like they don't show up for a January game and all of a sudden they're answering questions about their head coach. Like that sucks, man.
It's like you're on pace for the second best record in the league, but why are you guys terrible? Why do you guys hate each other? Should we fire Missoula? Should Marcus actually be the coach? It's like it probably feels like a lot to them. You're right. And like from the outside, it's like, what really was the thing? And maybe that speaks to the strength of the locker room. Like, you look at Embiid, he takes, I swear, any chance to throw any player under the bus. And Tatum takes any opportunity to, I support Joe. We need to re-sign Jaylen. Whether or not he believes those things, that is the correct approach in the middle of adversity. When shit's hitting the fan, you do not react emotionally and create more of a media storm. So like, and when it's happening to you as well, maybe it feels worse. I wish we knew, but I do think it speaks to like the professionalism of this locker room. Blake Griffin, Al Horford, all these guys, have been around the block. And outside of Jaylen kind of bringing like attention to the team by their own volition, it felt like they did a pretty good job of just like saying, yeah, we're going to find it. And they did. And again, going to keep saying it. They were really freaking close to making the finals.
Remember all the JB Kyrie stuff too? Like,
God, yeah. That's a good one. That's definitely a thing.
That was this year. That feels like a million years ago, but that was this season too. Like, that was a big deal too, man.
I did hear multiple people like within the team and in the media as well sort of insinuate multiple times throughout the season that there was maybe like a Marcus Smart personal thing going on. And like, I'll end the speculation there because it's obviously unfair to Marcus Smart and whatever to try and guess
we always
what happened there.
We get 2 to 4 of those every year. Everybody hates Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart hates everybody. Jaylen says, I think he's my brother. It's like, well, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it sounded like there was maybe something going on in his life that was like affecting him as a player and like as a member of staff on the team, for lack of a better word. And if you look at his sort of up and down season and how like once the playoffs started, it was like, there he is. Like, he was always there the whole time, but he's just been like dealing with some shit. Maybe that was an issue as well, but I've saved that till last because I think that's on the bottom of our rankings here. Let's move on to the meatiest piece of meat in the sandwich, and that is this question: exactly how much does supermaxing Jaylen Brown fuck up our cap situation, and what's changing with the CBA that makes this a thing to begin with? And before I throw to you, Spoonie, who is the most qualified person possibly in the world to answer this question, Spoonie,
Mike Zarin, Spoonie at number 2.
Spoonie wrote a great piece on Celtics blog, which you can find on Celtics blog. And for me, I'm an idiot, and I found this to be like just the easiest way and the most succinct yet informative way to digest all of the information, all the questions I had about like what's going on with Jaylen Brown and what are the constraints around the CBA that make this situation complicated. So go and read that if you haven't already. But we do have the man with us, Wayne Spoonie, to sort of answer this question verbally. So like I guess that's the question. How much does it fuck up our cap situation to supermax Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, so it's the biggest thing that fucks this up isn't the new stuff. It's something that already exists, and it's the combination of the luxury tax with the new stuff. So do you guys know how much our luxury tax bill is this year? Wick has to write a check for $64 million for this team right now. Right now. Yeah. And you think you're going to re-sign Grant probably. Tatum gets a raise because he gets those huge raises in his current max contract. Basically, everybody's contract goes up with the cap. So yes, the cap will keep increasing. They did cap smoothing at $10 million, but the pace of the contracts are going up either even with it or at a faster pace. So right now, without a supermax, We are paying $64 million a year on top of
Whoa.
everything. Okay. So say next year, that's another $60-70 million luxury tax bill. And then after that, you get Jaylen supermax and the repeater tax kicks in. So you are, I mean, this tax bill, if we do nothing and stand pat and just give Jaylen a supermax, this tax bill could be like $150 million. I do not think Wyc Grousbeck is going to pay $150 million extra a year for this team right now. And if he does, okay, hell yeah, you're the man, Wyc. I'll buy you some chocolates and roses. I'll get Jay's guy that does Derek White stuff and bring
I was
him
gonna say,
you.
yeah, you can come to the mistress penthouse for a night.
But and then
On us.
the new CBA compounds it, right? Because there's all these limits on acquiring players. You can't take back money in a trade. Your draft pick can get moved to the end of the first round if you're over. There's this second luxury tax line if you're over that. So if you're good now and then you lose Tatum, like paying tax can screw you because you won't have your draft pick even if you're terrible. So and you can't use the mid-level extension. So like if assuming Wyc is not willing to pay that much tax, he's going to have to lower the salary bill. And that means getting rid of guys like Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Grant Williams, those kind of mid-level salary, Marcus Smart, in order to accommodate having a supermax. And then you can't really replace them because the new CBA limits the ways in which you can add talent to your team. So you are stuck with this dichotomy where it's like, we need to cut salary, which means we have to give up assets. And then also we can't even add with the mid-level exception. We can't do another trade where we add a little bit of salary and, move Peyton Pritchard, take on a little bit of extra salary and get a better player. You can't even do that. You basically are just stuck downgrading your roster to cut the salary bill. And then eventually you're left with like, okay, we've got Jaylen and Tatum on supermaxes and just about nothing else around them, assuming Wyc is not willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money, which I do not think he's willing to do.
Do we know how Wyc has to pay? Is it actually Wyc? The Celtics make revenue, right? Like, does their profit, are they able to use that towards the tax bill?
Yes. So they actually have a company. It's like Boston Basketball Company or something like that. And Wyc is, I don't even know if he's the majority owner. He just might have the largest stake. We have a lot of owners. It's I think we're like one of the poorest teams, which is a concern. Yeah. But yeah, you absolutely can use the money that you generate. And maybe we're making so much money, this doesn't matter. And I absolutely hope that's the case, but I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, well, Googling Wycliffe is his full name, which I did not know.
Wow.
Is it Wycliffe? Wycliffe Grousbeck net worth of $400 million, which is a lot for a human, but Steve Ballmer is like $100 billion.
Yeah, it ain't cutting $100 million checks a year.
That's what I mean. So if it's Wyc actually paying that, then clearly he's not paying that. But if it's the group, how much for profit, maybe that becomes a little more palatable. I have a clip from Brad's presser that kind of someone asked him how the CBA will kind of affect him. He kind of goes priority about the core and then talks a little bit about the issues with the biggest issues he thought with losing the conference finals, which I think kind of helps frame this here.
What's the challenge there from the limitations that kind of put you guys on from a team building standpoint moving forward, and would it potentially force you guys into tougher decisions earlier?
Every team's going to have to make tough decisions every year, right? But at the end of the day, we love our foundation, we love our core, and that's really our focus and priority.
And you mentioned offensively, you guys thought that was the biggest issue at the end of the playoffs for you guys.
Just those last couple games. I mean, maybe we don't win Game 6, right? It goes both ways. It's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, Brian. I mean, Game 6 we played pretty well. We didn't shoot it well. We were 7 for 35 from 3, right? And we struggled late in that game. One of the reasons we struggled late in that game because they were scoring every time and setting up their 2-2-1. Then we're not going to be able to play fast up the court because they're extending the floor to make you take time to start your play later. And then we get into kind of our stagnancy that hurt us a couple times late. And that's not a new thing, right? And so we were way better most of the season late in games. But in the playoffs, we had moments where we got back to that. Everything plays a role in that. That's all tied together.
So, like, there was other questions about the CBA in there, but I thought that, like, quick response of we love our core, we're committed to our core, kind of like it doesn't like answer whether or not they're going to give Jaylen the supermax or not, but it kind of helps frame like we believe in our core. This is like our priority, and then
sounds like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
It sounds like coming from a guy who is not sure what the situation is as far as like how much Wick is willing to cough up in terms of the repeated tax. I just Googled like what the yearly revenue is for the Celtics. And this is from Forbes. In 2022, the yearly revenue was $361 million with an operating cost of $137 million. Doesn't leave a lot of margin to cover what is going to be an increasingly huge repeated tax bill. So obviously they have other sources of income and revenue, other investments that I'm sure are very profitable as well. So it's not to say that's the only place they can draw those funds from, but it is to say that they're in a way lesser position than Balmer and other folks in the league. So it will be interesting. And so it does beg the question, sticking with the theme of this podcast, what's your preference as far as how we navigate this situation? And I'll list off what I believe to be the options here, so feel free to pile onto this. Supermax Jaylen, long live the Jays. That's option number one. That sounds like we might put ourselves in quite the bind if we just opt for the simplicity of that option. Number two, Supermax Jaylen, trade in a year when eligible. Number three, explore/negotiate a non-Supermax extension, i.e. 25% of the cap instead of 35% of the cap. And then option four, explore Jaylen trade opportunities immediately. And then we can get into what those trade opportunities would be. Spoonie, of those options or any other that you might have in your mind, what's the go for you?
I love Jake's idea from the late night show, number 3 there, like Jaylen, buddy, just take 30% of the cap. Like,
oh boy.
Yeah. And like
how's that conversation go?
I know, but that saves you because like every dollar you're basically spending $3 with the tax, right? So if you save, 15, or I guess it'd be like $10 million a year or whatever it is, that's $30 million a year on the luxury tax. That is like very, very significant. And I love Jaylen. I don't want to trade him. I didn't write that piece because I want to trade Jaylen Brown. I wrote it because like, if we're going to sit here and be like in a year and a half, wow, this team is too expensive, now is the time to trade him. But yeah, if we can get him to sign for something a little more manageable, I think it just sets us up way better. And that would be my ideal.
So the big question is like that's unanswerable is, where is Jaylen at? How does that conversation go? How do you like get Jaylen to a point where he's actually willing to do that? And something I was thinking about is like, okay, if you're Jaylen, it's like, oh, so I'm the one. It's always me in the trade rumors. Now I have to take another discount. What if Brad goes to Jason and says, we're trying to get Jaylen. We want to keep Jaylen. You want to keep Jaylen. We want to keep winning. We want to win titles. Having both of you at the maximum amount we can pay you of this Supermax is going to like, we're still going to be good. You guys are so good that we probably still have a chance to win a title just because of how good you guys are and filling out the roster. But we give ourselves a much better chance to win a title if we give you guys both less than 35%. So we say, Jaylen, we'll offer you 30%, but Tatum has also agreed that when his Supermax comes up, to take 30% of the Supermax, or whatever it is, 30% of the cap. So it's like Tatum's sacrificing, you're sacrificing, you're both making $50 million a year plus. Like, but that's going to give us a better chance. And it's like, we're not treating Jason as the golden boy. We're all sacrificing a little bit here. That might be the play. I have no idea if that plays. Like, I think it depends on the guy. Like, show him the video of Tom Brady winning Super Bowls. Tom Brady never was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is doing it now as well, in that he's sacrificing money on his contract so they can field out a roster. It doesn't seem like something that happens in the NBA really for some of these best guys. But the supermax stuff, we are in like uncharted territory with the supermaxes and all that kind of stuff. That would be my negotiating strategy to at least explore if that's realistic.
Yeah, that's definitely my preference as well. I don't think the NBA Players Union envisioned having their contracts negotiated down when they agreed to this new CBA. And
well, they're still going up. It's just like not up into the like next galaxy
Stratosphere.
up. Yeah, it's like, oh my God.
Dude,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No,
please.
you go. I've got nothing.
I was gonna say, like,
please save me.
Like, Jake, this is literally uncharted territory because I think we're gonna be the first team to ever have 2 supermax guys.
Yeah.
Like, literally, this has never been done before. We're gonna have 2 guys making $300 million. Like, that's absurd. That's insane. That's over $500 million.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, I got into this thing with someone, like some people on Twitter, and that I retweeted, like, Draymond had this video about how you don't break up the Jays because, you know, it gets worse without that. You got to bring in guys like Otto Porter and Gary Payton and Nemanja Bjelica to fill out the roster. And I was like, I legitimately don't think that Draymond fully understands how like the CBA will work and like the 2 supermaxes. Like, the Warriors didn't have to deal with this. Like, they did not have, like, if Jaylen took a normal max, then they can keep all 3 of you and do all the other stuff that they did. And they had an owner that was willing to pay. Like, the reason that they've changed the CBA is because you guys literally did something that's never happened before and that, like, pretty much no one else can afford. And so
it was the inverse of our situation. They benefited from a quirk in the CBA. It was perfectly timed when their contract re-signings came up. We're in the exact opposite situation. This could not be timed more poorly as far as the players we have on roster, our chances to re-sign them, and the new constraints being introduced by this new CBA. It's fucking brutal. But Spoonie, you did you prefaced this in your article and you mentioned it a moment ago. Like, none of us want to trade Jaylen Brown. Yeah. We love Jaylen Brown. I mentioned earlier, like, the unfortunate thing about this time of the year is that we are sort of remembering everyone at their worst, given the disappointing end to the season. And yet there were times throughout the regular season where Jaylen Brown absolutely carried this team. Huge stretches. Like, I remember when he came back with the mask for the first time. Tatum was struggling with his shooting efficiency as he kind of did throughout the entire year. And Jaylen Brown was like carrying this team. And, you know, there's all those arguments among the casuals that, you know, that maybe Jaylen Brown is the better player of the Jays. Obviously he's not, but he at least sort of like reintroduced himself to that conversation. He reintroduced that conversation to the fan base multiple times throughout the year. So he is very good, had a very unfortunate end to the season, but he's incredible. We love him. We don't want to see him go. That said, he may have to go. He may just have to go, which is where we start to shift the conversation towards, okay, well then, like, when do we move him? Is it now? And if so, what can we get for him? And I think we've got some pretty spicy trade ideas between the 3 of us. Some of them we mentioned on our late night show on CLNS there after Game 7, which if you could bear to go back and listen to that and hear the disappointment in our voices, I challenge you to do so. So we will maybe repeat some of those. But Spoonie, you had some great ideas cooked up in your article there. Do you want to run us through some of those?
Yeah, I think my favorite, and actually shout out to Joe of First to the Floor. No, our Joe, because he was the guy who was like, I think we should go after Mikal Bridges. And I think Bridges is the perfect target because the big thing, if I'm looking to trade Jaylen, I want to get 2 things back. I want to get a guy whose skills aren't so overlapping with Tatum. You want someone who accentuates Tatum's abilities just a little bit more than Jaylen. I want a big time spot up shooting or ball handling, preferably both, but that's probably not going to happen. So, and you want salary relief, right? We're talking about how bad our cap situation is going to be. Well, it doesn't make sense to trade Jaylen and then get somebody who's going to be just as expensive. Bridges is locked up for 4 years on $20 million, man, which is like nothing. Grant Williams is almost going to get that much money in the offseason. He's an incredible player. So the trade I had was this. I probably got a little greedy with this one, but Jaylen and a pick for Bridges and Nick Claxton. And Claxton's an expiring. So you can either let him go for salary relief, or you can try and lock him up on that sort of Rob Williams style contract, like 12, 13 million. So that puts you at like $34 million a year for those two guys. And Jaylen, again, is going to get average annual value of $55 million a year. So you're saving $20 million. You're getting Bridges, who I think is like catching up to Jaylen as a player. He's a way better defender, and he's a better spot up guy. Not nearly as good in ISO or off the bounce, but that would be my app. Like, I would do that tomorrow, and I really would. Super max be damned. I just think Bridges is that good.
Yeah. What if we keep Jaylen and steal trade from Mikal Bridges? I'll get into that later. But I don't know. I don't know if you get back. I just don't know where Jaylen's value is. Like, what is this expiring to? Like, does the deal have to be like, we've negotiated with New York, Jaylen has agreed that he's going to resign?
Yes.
Like, and this is the tricky part. Like, how confident is a team trading for Jaylen going to be that he's going to stick by his word? Like, there's no reason for anyone to doubt Jaylen. Like, he's been he's just been in Boston his whole career. He's never asked for a trade before. So maybe he sticks by his word, but like, he's, not obliged to, unless like, the agreements with different agents and different teams, like those relationships are so important that you still end up signing with New York. That would be the pop. I would do that today. Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I think that solves a lot of problems while not necessarily downgrading our roster all that much. And then the value in Jaylen for a franchise like Brooklyn, who's a pretty big market there, maybe they're not necessarily looking to pull the trigger on something that puts them into championship contention, but Jaylen Brown is a highly marketable player, like just from a business perspective. And you put him there in a market like Brooklyn on his own, Spoonie's cat says hello. I think that they would probably consider that as a win, just as far as like the value of their franchise bums on seats in the Barclays Center every night as Spoonie's cat just bounces precariously behind his head there.
Is he going to jump on his head? Excellent.
But I do think that they might see some value in Jaylen Brown, like beyond championship contention, just as far as value to their franchise there. Other trades, guys, what else you got?
The Portland thing, I know we've talked about this. I don't know. If you can be positive that Scoot is going to be there at 3, and I know the argument is like, he's going to be 19, he's not going to be ready. You know who was 19 and was ready to make the conference finals?
Jason Tatum.
Yeah, let's go. Like, if Scoot comes in and is, by all accounts, like, most people think that he's going to be a SGA level player, and one of the biggest issues for the Celtics is like lead ball handler that you can like throw the ball to and like just be comfortable attacking and not get the ball stripped from them. And he's a beast. Like, he's 19, but Jaylen's jacked. Jaylen's jacked, but Scoot is also pumped and jacked. Like, at 19, it's kind of crazy. Like, talking about dimensions of 19-year-old boys, but like, this dude is yoked. He's ready to come into the NBA and be really good right away. The only thing is like the shooting, but that doesn't really worry me. That we didn't hit any threes in the playoffs anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then either Scoot becomes the guy that you build with, or all of a sudden you've got like the future top point guard in the league, and maybe he's not quite ready, but you have like these pieces and you're ready to trade for whoever, literally anyone.
Does it kind of extend the window as well? Because assuming like we're in the best possible position to supermax Jason Tatum, and we will give him that supermax, and therefore he's probably unlikely to walk, does signing or drafting, in this case, Scoot Henderson, who might become the best point guard in the league, but is still so young, does that kind of extend the Celtics window of contention a little bit? I know I'm getting too far ahead of myself here, but you got to ask these questions.
Jake,
should the Celtics win 3 titles?
Yeah. Are you proposing we get Simons back? Is that like the salary? Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd be looking to spin him from there. Probably. I'm not. I don't think I love the fit of Simons, especially when you're getting Scoot, and you have Marcus, Derek, and Brogdon. then you'd be looking to trade. You'd be trying to probably look into shed salary a little bit there, right? As well. Like, but Simons, from what it seems like, has lots of value, and you can go get wing, big man,
OG.
whatever. OG. Yeah, because now you've got Simons or you've got Brogdon, and that's the next step. Yeah, because I haven't looked at the Simons salary, but like the OG for Brogdon trade that I was going to throw out a little bit later, that can be Simons as well, and Brogdon can be moved for another piece. Man,
I love Scoot Henderson.
Yeah.
I just think he's going to be a star from day one, dude. Like, he is so explosive. His handle is so tight. He reads the game so well. And I think he'll be a good defensive player for his size. So I would do that in a heartbeat too. But the problem is you might end up with Brandon Miller.
Yeah. It'd have to be a draft night trade.
Yeah,
right?
it's draft night trade.
But like, he's going to go too, right? So
I don't know, dude.
Fun.
Like Charlotte, would you be shocked if they just take Brandon Miller because they have LaMelo? Like, Charlotte's not been a team that, like, Bill Simmons has floated the idea that Charlotte needs to pretend like they're taking Scoot at the minimum, but Charlotte is dumb, like one of the worst run teams in the league. So like they're probably just going to be like, oh, we've got the star point guard, let's take the star wing because that's going to be the guy that fits next to Jaylen, and then in 5 years going to be like, oh, we definitely should have taken Scoot because he's way better than LaMelo. Yeah, but it's a draft night trade.
Yeah, if in the alternate world you're the competent owner and manager of the Charlotte Hornets, you're trading LaMelo, right, in that instance, and drafting Scoot Henderson, or at least drafting Scoot and just seeing what you've got with both of them for a little bit.
Well, on that, would you trade for LaMelo?
No, I would not.
I hate LaMelo. He just he might be the worst defensive player in the league. I swear. No. He is way up there, dude. He's up so bad. He is so bad.
He just doesn't look like he cares either. You know, like about anything other than his own metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at makeup, character, dog, LaMelo, we're not sure. Scoot is like made of dog. So much dog.
Mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just to round off this segment, I had and this has already been shut down twice off air for those listening. Once by no one responding to it at all, and then quickly before we went on air. So Jaylen Brown for Cade Cunningham and Marvin Bagley. The money works. Cade is locked up on his rookie deal for a couple more years. The feedback I got before the show, guys, was that Detroit likely don't do it. But as far as like another ball handler, another playmaker, play creator, someone who can score like playoff buckets. Not that Cade is in any way proven on the playoff landscape, but like he can get off mid-range shots. He can like get into the teeth of the defense and attack a drop coverage. I think he could be a good pairing, a good addition for the Celtics. I gather you guys don't agree.
No, I love Cade.
Me too. I just don't think Detroit, like Detroit thinks that Cade is going to be a top 10 player. And so
the surgery, the shin issue, that doesn't like knock their confidence in him a little bit, and ours to that effect.
I think the shin issue was probably not a big deal, and that they wanted to get Wemby, and then they ended up with the 5th pick, which is so bad.
Probably fair.
Such a, and then like we can't trade Cade because we're going to be. They might be worse again if they trade Cade for Jaylen. Honestly, like,
and the part of the beauty of Cade is like he can basically. He's 6'7", right? He can play point guard. He can play the 2. He can play the 3. So you can basically draft anything around him and he fits. So like he is such a perfect building block. I don't know if he's going to be a top 10 player, but I think he's going to be an all-star pretty easily. And he's just so versatile, dude, that like, that's another one. I don't know how you can say no to Cade's talent. Seriously. And Bagley, I guess, is a fun reclamation project. He's a big, you can roll out there, takes Cornet's minutes, right?
Yeah, Grant Williams replacement.
We can get another injury-prone big that's worse than Rob. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Moving forward, like what are the biggest glaring issues for the Celtics that need to be addressed this offseason? Or we can talk about that through the lens of roster moves and adjustments, or we can just talk about it from a coaching perspective. Jake, like what would be the first thing that you would address with the Celtics this offseason?
I think it has to be, the crunch time, playing with the lead with 10 minutes, with 5 minutes to go, with 7 minutes to go. Like if they if they're good at this, they win game 1 against Philly up 4 with like 2 minutes to go. And Brad even cited these things as well. I was going to bring all of these games up on the podcast. In the presser, Brad was like, game 1 against Philly, game 4 against Philly, game 5 against Atlanta as well, which I forgot about, which maybe was the worst one, where they're up 12 with 6 minutes to go to close it out and said they have to go back to Atlanta and play game 6. Game 1 against Miami, they're up 10 in the third quarter. Not quite the same thing, because I didn't like bleed out like in the last 5 minutes, but up 9, 6 minutes to go against Miami. If they win half of those games, it's a completely different playoff run. Completely different playoff run. That is at the top of the list. And Brogdon, we'll get we can rank it, but I think that this conversation brings us to Brogdon.
Yes, absolutely.
That's where I was going to go as well.
Yeah, he was brought in to be the guy as the steady hand that can run the offense in crunch time and get you consistent points. And look, Brogdon, his shooting was great. He didn't really do anything else. But I like to this is what I'm going to bring up, but I think it's all sort of the same thing. I had an exchange with Eric Weiss, shout out, friend of the program, on Twitter. And it was not related to Brogdon, it was related to Jaylen, but he's like, the reason these guys look like they don't know what they're doing or they get stagnant is because there is no offensive system. They haven't had an offensive system for years. They need to have a true offensive system. So like, it makes me think, like, what does that mean in crunch time? Because a lot of teams do just like ISO hunt, mismatch hunt, and then go ISO. Like, you know, even like the Kings, they were the most system team that ever systemed this year. And even them in crunch time in the playoffs, it was like dribble handoff with Fox. Fox gets a mismatch. He goes 1-on-1. So I mean, maybe figuring out, and we talked about this a lot, is like, what is it that's unstoppable about your players or your offense that you can go to in crunch time? And do you need a new player to solve that? Or is it something involving Tatum? Like Jake says, maybe posting him up or something, but
it's
probably
a new player that can get Tatum the ball in the post. That'll be great.
Yeah. So I actually think that these issues are all fixable by making 0 changes. Like they can do nothing and like put the system in, put Tatum in the post. Saw something else on Twitter, like the drive and kick Missoula ball offense, they go away from, and the famous quotes from last year with the Doka, where it was like Marcus Smart calling out the Jays, being like, there's only so much I can do from standing in the corner. Marcus Smart has ended up in the corner how many times in crunch time this playoffs? And it's like a lot. And that's a problem. So like they have the tools, like we've seen it at times work, whether it's putting in specific plays to get over the hump in crunch time or Tatum in the post, whatever it is. But I do think that they don't need Brogdon, even like they can get rid of Brogdon and fix it without him. So the other piece that I think that we did lose, even though I thought the defensive like ceiling, I think we did see at times in the playoffs, but I was confident we were going to see it a lot more in the playoffs because I thought we saw it throughout enough in the regular season, but we didn't. So Brogdon, we trade Brogdon to our friends up north in Toronto. Fred VanVleet has just left or is planning to leave the Toronto Raptors, so they're going to need a point guard. Enter Malcolm Brogdon for OG.
I would make babies with this trade. I want to live with this trade in like a log cabin in the snowy woods somewhere, just like relax by the fire with this trade all night for the rest of my life.
And like, it saves us money.
And you save $4 million.
Money. Yeah.
Yeah. So like even I don't think you would have to throw in a pick, but like I feel like you probably do, just because I don't know. Masai Ujiri doesn't seem to make trades because he is like Danny in that he needs to win the trade by so much. Brad's kind of proven that if he wants to make a deal, he'll just like make it happen. So I don't know. Does it kind of hurt to like trade a first round pick for Brogdon and then trade a first round pick with Brogdon to get OG? Maybe, but like whatever.
Let me ask you this. Would you trade Aaron Nesmith and spare parts and 2 firsts for OG last summer?
Yeah.
I would. I 100% would have, right?
But,
so
but is it the extra first round pick like
But what's
to
the
get
value
OG.
of what's the value of first round picks to this team at this current juncture? Like, it's not really to draft players and have them become part of the rotation, is it? The value in those picks are as trade chips. Am I wrong? Like, we're not expecting anything from a mid to late first round pick. We are expecting something out of a trade, like, getting OG Anunoby. So I think there's more value in trading the pick than there is in keeping it and using it.
But then when we start to think about saving salary, like you're going to want to hit on the 35th pick this year or your first round pick next year. So when, like, if you have to trade away Marcus Smart because everything gets so crazy because maybe you're valuing Derek White above Marcus Smart, the guy you drafted 35th overall or 28th overall next year is the talent replacement on that cheap contract, or it's Scoot Henderson. So it's whatever.
Oh, it's JD Davison.
Yeah.
JD Davison.
I love JD. Let me ask you this. Like, if Brogdon is, and I agree, I think Brogdon's gone. Like, I think that's very
redundant skill set. Yeah.
Wouldn't it make sense to keep Pritchard?
Yeah.
Apparently he's like, he wants out.
That sucks, man, because he would be the perfect
Too bad.
like, third guy. I know. Yeah.
Too bad.
Damn it.
Too bad. Like, we've got him we have a team option. So maybe you like,
we do,
because you trade. Yeah. And so you trade for OG or a Jeremy Grant, essentially big wing that plays real defense. OG is like the best option, obviously, because he can play all defense level caliber. And then Pritchard plays the Brogdon minutes, and there will actually be a role for him because you don't have the three guards. And maybe you just lose him after next season, but it's not a disaster because it's just Pritchard.
Yeah, it's like, look, give us a year to prove to you you're part of our plans, and if we don't convince you, you can sign somewhere else. But if we do convince you, we'll lock you up to a nice cheap contract to play 15 minutes a night.
Yeah.
So this segued perfectly into we've already answered it. Who is the most tradable Celtic? It's definitely Malcolm Brogdon because of his redundant skill set. Is there anyone else?
Gallo
being moved? Gallo, yeah, I think that's a legitimate call.
Yeah.
Like, just that's a chunk of salary that is movable for us. And I just don't see him being very much of a contributor, especially coming off the injury.
I want to see it so bad, though. He's been so excited to join the Celtics all year. Every post has been like the most emotional, heartfelt support for the Boston Celtics organization. Before we move off Brogdon, I know. He's the best. Before we move off Brogdon, I do have two more trades. I know we talked about Mikal. I don't know if you can trade for Mikal Bridges using Brogdon and then all of your picks, like, because then you have Mikal and Jaylen and Jason, and then that's your core, and then maybe you get off Jaylen later on, or something that maybe is more realistic is Mike Conley for Brogdon. Like, I know he's a free agent, but he has like an option that he can pick up. Mike Conley is definitely way more the like point guard than Malcolm Brogdon. So like, that's the type of guy that would potentially solve those problems as a guard. And you put him on the Brogdon plan as far as health wise goes, because he's a bit older and, he can play that 28 minutes a game. I don't know if the Timberwolves are going to want to get rid of him because they need someone to play pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, and Brogdon can't throw a lob to anyone, apparently. I don't know.
Can he pass? Period.
Yeah. Did he throw a single lob to Rob Williams the entire season?
The Brogdon health plan, it almost worked.
We were so
right
close.
up until Game 5 of the Eastern Conference.
What the hell, dude?
Almost got there. So brutal.
Damn it.
All right.
I would real quick on Brogdon. I would also, if we can't find like a wing on the OG level, we need a center. We need a center so bad, man, because Al clearly is just like not gonna be able to give you starter level play anymore, and Rob is Rob. Like, I had a spicy trade with Phoenix because I heard that Phoenix apparently has expressed interest in Brogdon, and then you can get up to 30 million, and you can get to DeAndre Ayton if that interests you.
Culture killer.
Dog. We need dog, not a dog.
Hey, man, he was good in that finals run. He was really good.
Yeah, that soft run, that soft playoff run against like the Kawhi-less Clippers and the Jamal-less Nuggets.
Just
I'm
putting
not
it
about
out
it.
there. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, I got to get Nas Reed into the trade machine and see what we can figure out.
He's a
there.
UFA, I'm pretty sure.
So it would need to be like a sign and trade or something, which I don't think would work for us. But
we can't
Unlikely.
do. Yeah,
That's
we
brutal.
literally can't take somebody in a sign and trade, unfortunately.
This is the most disappointed I've been since we lost Game 7. Yeah, that sucks. All right, a couple more to wrap up here because we want to make it for the tip for Game 1 of the finals here. What offer is Grant Williams going to get? Spoonie, you and Chris Forsberg, you kind of went back and forth on this. What feels like centuries ago at this point. So much has changed since then. 12 million per year sort of seems like the general consensus, which I think is what he rejected initially. It may have even been more than that. So 12 to 14. What do you think's fair for Grant?
I think Grant tried to bet on himself, and I think we're going to end up right where like Brad originally. Brad seems to really know the value of players, like because he's kind of nailed Smart, Rob. So I think, right in that 12 to 13 range, a little bit lower than Forsberg and I predicted. So I will be eating a Vegemite sandwich on a live stream. But yeah, right around there.
Oh, really? I'm hungry. Could smash.
I'll eat one too out of solidarity.
Yeah,
I'm one after this.
Yeah. Oh man. I would be surprised if it's more than 12 million, but like I want to do have a look at like all the teams that have cap space and all the free agents. I just don't see it for Grant. And the restricted free agency thing is a nightmare. Like if you're a restricted free agent, it's a disaster. Like, because if a team offers Grant a offer sheet, that money is just held for like 3 days. And free agency, as you guys have seen, like it starts it's already over when it starts, basically. Like the window opens and then all of the deals just come like flying through because everybody's been tampering. So like the restricted free agents typically are after everything's been done, and the Celtics have the ability to match. And so like when these teams their money gets held in like no man's land for a few days, I just don't see anyone prioritizing Grant with like real cap space. Like if you think someone's gonna offer Grant 18 million, like more so than I think I had some of these guys up here, but it's like Cameron Johnson is a restricted free agent. Like he's gonna probably get re-signed or get a much bigger offer sheet. He's like Grant Williams on steroids. Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves. Like there's so many guys that I think that are going to be ahead of Grant in that pecking order. Jeremy Grant, Harrison Barnes. Like there's just, I'm not sure I see it for Grant. Like Nas Reed. Yeah.
And we just have to sign him as well, right? Like just to own and maintain the asset.
Yeah.
And with our lack of cap space and inability to sign anyone in free agency or have any really maneuverability at all, just to own the asset going forward, even if we do have to match like 17, 18, I think you've still just got to do it, right?
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Grant's young still. He can get better. You know what I mean? Like he comes out shooting lights out a little better with the handle. It's all of a sudden that's going to be a deal at $12 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we just get Grant back to how he played in last year's playoffs, and then speaking of Grant, which we don't have to get into today, but like there was the reports of Tatum and Jaylen being like, what the hell happened to Grant's minutes?
Yeah.
In like March. So we can get into
He was
that
playing pretty bad.
I know, but
it's great they want him. They want him.
That's my point. I think it's more interesting. It's like
yeah.
he was really important for our playoff run last year. Like we got to get him back on track.
Yeah.
So we'll end with this, and then we'll quickly talk about like what's coming up for our show and just like a year in review there, because I think for us at least, maybe no one listening cares. That's worth touching on. What's like who's going to benefit more this offseason? Tatum and potentially getting wrist surgery, or Rob Williams having his first healthy offseason in like a while? What excites you more, Spoonie?
No, Jake, you go. I'm not ready to answer that yet.
I don't think the wrist surgery is going to do anything for Tatum. I mean, I don't know. He looks fine to me. Like outside of some pain on his left wrist, maybe that's the reason his 3-point shot's fallen apart over the last couple of years. But I would not expect the wrist surgery to have a significant impact on him. If anything, I don't want him to get wrist surgery. Just push through it for the rest of your life, and get the full off. Like. Do we even know for sure if he needs the wrist surgery? I don't know. I feel like it's something
kind of seems like he does. Like he's had like a freaking like ropes tied around his arm for like 2 years now. It's time to do something about it.
Non-shooting hand. He can shoot with a ping pong paddle on his left hand and get that jumper working again. But yeah, I think it's Rob. Yeah, me too, dude. Like if he gets back to 38% from three, he's gonna be. He might win the MVP next year if he can get back to that, dude. But I think it's
happen.
Yeah, we do. That would solve so many of the problems we've talked about tonight. If Tatum's just like one step higher. Anyway, it's Rob.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, just a quick moment just to thank everyone who has listened this year and tuned in, and for all the new subscribers. And, we would obviously like many more new subscribers. So share the show with your friends, spread the news. But we love all the interactions that we have with everyone on the show. Obviously, like we do this for fun. It's essentially a not-for-profit organization. We do it because we love it. And a huge part of that is just all the interactions, all the comments, all the likes, reviews, all the times that you guys reach out to us with questions and comments and praise and things like that. We love it. So thank you to the audience. You guys make the show what it is. Spoonie, Jake, huge year for you guys. Jake, your first year on the show. Spoonie, your second/third-ish.
Yes.
Big years for us on the show. Obviously, we got a gig with Celtics Blog earlier in the season, and then when that kind of got shut down due to some SB Nation podcasting funding issues, we transitioned to CLNS, who we're still with, that we've been doing the late show with recently. Just the access to the staff, both at Celtics Blog, which we still have, and at CLNS, and to be sort of part of their chat circles and to sort of be somewhat on the inside there has just been a real thrill. Obviously, being a long-time Celtics fan and following a lot of those people in the media for a long time, to be somewhat of a part of that now is just such a thrill and so exciting for all of us. And in terms of what's next for the show, more of the same. We're going to continue to do what we do, live streams on our channel and potentially on the CLNS channels as well. We're going to continue to leverage our existing networks for some of your old favorite guests to come back on the show, like Forsberg, like Greeny, but hopefully some new exciting guests as well. And essentially just more of the same, more of our unique tone when it comes to covering the team and discussing the team and celebrating the wins and commiserating, which is what we're doing right now, the losses. Spoonie, Jake, anything you want to add there? It's been such an exciting year. I just wanted to make sure that we touched on it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just an idiot writing stuff on paternity leave for Reddit 3 years ago. And because of this show, the only reason Celtics Blog knew who I was and was willing to look at my writing and possibly hire me was because I was on this show and we had gotten picked up. So very appreciative of that fact, man. And it's been awesome doing this and writing for Celtics Blog, like seeing some of the interaction and the praise and the hate, which is something I'm still adjusting to, at least on Celtics Blog. But yeah, I'm just super appreciative of you, Ben, and this opportunity, and you, Jake. It's just been a really, really fun year, except for like 3 days ago. Yeah, or however long ago that was. Fun. Yeah.
It's just so fun talking Celtics with you guys all the time. Like, I talk to Celtics about it, like with my dad, but like having like you guys to come and talk C's with, the good, the bad, it's just like it makes the wins that much sweeter, makes the losses that much less painful, honestly.
Yeah,
like it really does. And everybody in the chat, like going through it together, it's so much fun. And the playoffs it's like my favorite time of the year, but it's also the worst time of the year. But like this show has been awesome. I love that it's growing. I've learned so much from just like how to make shit and
same.
Yeah. And we're growing. It's fun to be part of something that's like continually growing and you can put your energy in. The hate for Spoonie, I think that's more Celtics Blog driven than Spoonie driven.
Yes.
I think there's just the people that are like, Celtics Blog said this.
Yeah.
Time to take him down. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just people being angry online as well, which is a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that was a great article, Spoonie, as all of them are. And if you're listening and you haven't read that, make sure you go check it out. And obviously, we've got to give a huge shout out to Jackson Bauer and Joe, our New Zealand correspondent too. They've been part of the show for a long time, more in a sort of a part-time capacity at the moment, just because of the time of day that we record, essentially. But they're obviously still a huge part of the show and very vocal in our Slack there. So big shout out to those guys. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. A reminder that we are firing up our playback room for game one, like right now. So head over there if you want to keep it rolling. That's playback.tv/first to the floor. Thanks again to everyone who's listened and watched this year. We really enjoyed doing this. Everything that we've just said, the interactions with you guys mean a lot to us. So let's keep that going. We'll be back with another pod in a few days. Just depends on what the movements are with the team. If there's anything newsworthy that's worth podding about, we will be back to talk all about that. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.